Okay, for this session of the training, we're going to be talking about the form tree, which is this portion over here on the left-hand side. So what we're going to do is the form tree is built by the template that is assigned to this exam. So if you remember when we were on this section and we right-clicked and clicked New, and we had the example of a template. So if we ended up with more than one template, the template essentially would tell the system which forms we are going to use as part of this examination. So when I go over to the form tree, it tells me which forms are already loaded and ready to be used for this exam. These bolded areas are just headers. The other ones are actually pages or forms that are available for use in the exam. For example, I could click on charge slip at any time and go to that page. So I can just jump around by clicking on those pages. We've built in continue buttons and their next buttons, back buttons that will just take you to the most logical place. But you can jump to any page at any time just by clicking on it. The bold headers, though, they're just placeholders. They're headers. If you click on them, it actually grays out everything. So they're not pages. They don't have information on them. They're just kind of placeholders for the logical areas of each portion of the exam. Now, one of the things you'll notice as you go throughout the exam, there are certain areas that will actually add a page into the exam that is not part of it right now. For example, here on the workup plate page, if I come over to ancillary testing and click on it, it will actually add in on this left-hand side a new page. So now you can see that the new page is there called ancillary testing. And one of the significant things about this is any page that I add on like that has a little bracket. Now I'll go over why that bracket is significant in just a second. But every page that is available inside of the database is going to have a button somewhere in the exam to add it on. For example, the ancillary testing page added it on. If I click on diagnostic testing, that will add on another page, and so forth. So there are several different pages that can be added on. Now, one of the options that you have is that you can always right-click over here and click Add Page, and you can find the page you want to add on, and you can just double-click on it, and it will add it in underneath the page that you are already in. So because I was in the workup page, it added it on there. So once you've added a page on, one of the other right-click options you have in here is called Enable Drag and Drop. Now, Enable Drag and Drop, what that allows you to do is once you have it checked, so you can see that it's checked now, it allows you to take any page or form that has a bracket and move it around inside of the examination. So I could move that diagnostic testing page down if I wanted to, like that. Now, the only reason you would want to do that is to change where something shows up in the narrative. So if you remember when we went over the narrative a little bit and I kind of jumped back and forth between it, the way that the narrative is built is that it builds it in the exact order of the pages that show up over here in the form tree. So it's going to start with the workup information. So anything on this workup page will show up first, then it will do the ancillary testing, then the exam, then history and meds. And because I moved this diagnostic testing page, it would put the diagnostic testing information after the history and meds. Now, we've tried to put it so that it is a very logical and straightforward sequence of how this all shows up. So you probably will not ever move these around, and that is the only reason you would ever move them out is if you wanted to change the order. So say you wanted the diagnostic testing stuff to come after the slit lamp exam and the diagnoses and the plans and all that kind of stuff, then you would move it down. The reason that you have to actually right-click and click and check the Enable Drag and Drop is because we used to not have that, and people would accidentally just drag it around and then wonder why everything was moved around in the narrative. So now you actually have to enable the drag and drop to be able to move those around. Hopefully you won't ever have to move them around, but I just want to show you what that right-click menu option does. Okay, so I mentioned that these bold labels here are just placeholders. That is different when it comes to the attachments area. If I click on the bold attachments, it takes me to this screen. Now if I had an attachment in here, I would see a line in this grid down here of the attachment. Up here will show me a little thumbnail view of whatever the attachment is, as long as it's not a Word document. But PDFs, JPEGs, all the other stuff, it usually shows a thumbnail view here. This section right here, you can actually type in your interpretation if you want to. I don't recommend it. I recommend that you go back to the diagnostic testing page and use the drop-down menus there in order to interpret your report. We've done a pretty good job of getting that how it should be. So go back to the diagnostic testing page and do it that way. Let me kind of show you how this works. If I were to go to the workup page, and I'm just going to generate a blank glasses prescription. So anytime we generate a glasses prescription or a contact lens prescription or a letter, if we generate a letter to send to another doctor, those are going to use word merge. Once everything's merged in and the document is created, I'm going to click on File and Save. What's going to happen there is it's going to automatically save it into the attachments area. Now under the bold attachments, there are a whole bunch of subcategories. You have the ability to change these categories to whatever you want them to be. While we're talking about that, I'm going to show you how to do that. What you're going to do is you're going to go back to your Management Plus home screen. You're going to click on File, Electronic Health Record, EHR Setup, and then Attachment Types. These are the categories or the attachment types that I already have set inside of my system. If I edit any of these, so I could change the names of them or add a new one, it won't show up until you leave the exam that you're in and go back into it in order for that for the changes that you made to take effect. But then your new category or your changes that you made would show up right here under the attachments area. Now what we've done is we've told those glasses prescriptions and contact lens prescriptions and different letters and stuff to automatically assign themselves to one of these subcategories or attachment types. If we're interfaced with an OCT or a visual field or something like that, then when you click on an OCT interface, it will automatically place your printouts or whatever the OCT machine spits out into one of the categories. So as an example, I'll jump to the diagnostic testing page and I'll do an OCT and I'll push my interface button. I will perform the interface, which will automatically grab the printouts. Now you can see over here on the left-hand side under the OCT it says 2. That means there are 2 different files in there. In my glasses RX it says 1. So if I click on that category, now I can see my glasses RX. Now because I don't get the thumbnail here, I'm just if I want to open it up in a larger view, all I have to do is just double click on it and it will go ahead and open that up so that I can view it. Right. If I click on the OCT category on the left-hand side over here, now I see those 2 different files that got pulled in. The thumbnail on these, it's there, but it's not big enough to see. So probably what I would do is I'd double click on it to open up in a larger view. One of the things that I can do as well is I can highlight both of them at the same time, either by holding down my control key while I'm clicking or holding down the shift key. And then once they're open, or once they're highlighted, I can right click and click open, and that will go ahead and open both of them at the same time inside of my system here. So now I can go back and forth, or I could drag this over and have them show up side by side if I wanted to on that. Now, that's how I look at each individual category. Now, the significance of the bold attachments area is right now I'm only seeing the OCTs because I'm in the OCT category. Here I'm only seeing glasses RX because I'm in the glasses RX category. But if I click on bold attachments, I'm going to see everything in one area, no matter what type of attachment it has. Now, if I decided that I wanted to change this OCT and put it in my fundus category, I could do that just by clicking on it and changing it to fundus. And that would go ahead and change the category and place it into the fundus area. So I can assign manually the attachment type for any given document. Now I've talked about things that our program kind of produces on its own, like Word documents for glasses or for letters and interface buttons. But let's say that you wanted to pull something in through a scanner. You could just right-click and click Scan. It would automatically launch your scanning software and pull it in as a file. When you scan something, it does not automatically assign it to an attachment type unless you are in that attachment type when you scan it. So for example, let's say that I'm in Photos. When I right-click and click Scan, it will assign an attachment type Photos. If I'm in the bold attachments and I do it, it will leave the attachment type blank. Right, another option you have is to import a file. So if you have it on your desktop or on a flash drive, or somebody sent it through an email and you saved it as the attachment onto your desktop or something, you can right-click and you can click Import. Now I'll just do a quick example. I have a few pictures here that I can use. So I just pulled in, I imported that picture. So you can see that it put it in right here. There's the file name of the picture, but it didn't assign it an attachment type and it didn't auto-assign it a description, so I can call it whatever I want. And then I can assign it to whichever attachment type I want. And then over here you could see that the number is just updated to reflect that. Because I'm on the bold attachments, I'm seeing all 4 of those attachments that I've pulled in today, but I can click on any one individual subcategory to be able to see that. Now if I were to do the same picture or the same thing, pull in a picture but already be inside this Photos category, then you can see it automatically assigns to the attachment type Photos because I'm already there. Now, another significant thing about the attachments is if you look down here to the left, there are 2 little tabs. One says Visit and one says All. Visit means that we're only seeing the attachments that have been assigned or attached to this patient's record today during this visit. If I click All, it changes it to show all the prior attachments that have ever been assigned to this patient's record. And I can kind of go through those. You can see some of them are assigned attachment type and some of them aren't. And then these numbers reflected to show that as well. So I can switch back and forth if I want to compare today's visual field with visual fields from the past and I wanted to open them all up at the same time. I could do that by switching back and forth between the Visit and All, highlighting the ones that I want, right-clicking and clicking Open. So that's how the form tree or the attachment section works over here in the form tree. I'm going to go over the right-click menu or options that pulled up. We already went over Enable Drag and Drop, and we went over Add Page. Now let's say that I added on a page, and now I want to remove that page from my exam. Say that ancillary testing page, I decided I'm not going to use it. What I need to do is I need to actually go to that page first. So you can see I'm on the page. It's highlighted in blue. Once I'm there, I can right-click and click Delete Page, and it will move it, or it will remove it from my exam. Now it doesn't remove any data if you have filled in anything. That usually is a good thing. So let's say that I've filled in a bunch of this stuff, and then I accidentally right-click and delete this page. So what's going to happen is it's going to remove it from my exam. from my form tree here, and then I say, oh no, I accidentally did that. I just lost all the data. Well, you haven't lost the data. All you lost was the page inside your form tree. So if I add it back in, then the data will still be there. I can add it back in by right-clicking and clicking Add, or in this particular case, I can just click the button again over here that adds that page in, and it will show up again, and you can see that I did not lose my data in there. So if you want to actually remove the data that's in there when you delete a page, you'll need to come in and remove it from here first, and then go back and delete your page to remove it from the exam. Okay, these top two options, import page values. I'm going to show you how they work, and then I'm going to recommend that you do not use them, and I'll explain to you why kind of as we go. One of the things that I want to point out as the explanation of why I recommend that you do not use them, if I click right here in the chief complaint, and if I right-click, every single field inside of our system has this field audit if you right-click. Now, if you can see here, it shows that at such and such a time, the record was modified or added, was modified by staff, by system administrator, and this is what they typed. Well, if I go in now and I change that, then it will edit that audit field and will add a new line into there. All right. So now I can go back in and I can see that it was changed. Now, when you use right-click and import page values, what that does is it opens up a list of all their prior examinations. So if I chose an exam and I clicked OK, what would happen is it would pull in all the values from that exam. What happens, though, is you can see it pulled in the HPI. That field audit still shows the timestamp from a year ago, right? So if you've ever heard of visit cloning, that's kind of what that does. So you want to be careful with that. I usually recommend not using it. It can cause some problems when it comes to looking at historical information, and I just don't recommend using it. Now, if you made a change to the record, if I typed something in the HPI, then that would update the audit trail and the date as well. So if you imported and then went through every single field and made a change, then you'd be all right. But that's kind of how that import page values work. Import select pages is exactly the same thing, but it allows you to select more than one page at a time to be able to import from the prior examination. Again, I recommend not using those, but now you know what they do. Add and delete page security item. What add page security item does is it makes it so if I click add page security item, it would automatically make the whole workup page or form secure, which means that nobody would be able to access it unless they have the security permission. So if you're familiar with the way our security permissions work, there are certain security permissions that have certain descriptions, and you give them to your staff members to allow them to access that portion of the exam. Well, right now, there is no security for the workup form itself. There are security permissions that allow you to open an EHR visit as a whole, but having that security permission would allow you to open any page. But if you wanted to shut down the workup page so that not everybody could use it, then you would right-click and add a security item, which would then make the workup page be one of the security privileges that people would have to access it. Now, the only time I've ever seen this used is a clinic that had volunteer vision screeners, and so they made their vision screening page secure so that those volunteers could not get into any other portion of the exam. Other than that, I've never seen anybody use that, so you probably will not have to worry about that. But those are all the right-click options in the form tree, and that it concludes the form tree training for this section of the EHR training.